So this is my account page. So what we are doing, so the first thing we should do is restrict access to page. Yeah. And all you have to do is go to your server behavior, click on plus, and just within that user authentication you will see restrict access to your page, right? So restrict access to page, it says restrict based on username and password, or restrict access based on the access list, right? So if I say restrict access, it will allow me to define those access levels which you have in your tables. At the moment I'm just picking up username and password, and if access denied, go to what page? Login, and okay, and that's all. I've clicked on it twice. Click on OK. You already have that, look, restrict access on the page. Look, on the server behavior, it's already written. Just double click that. So if you already have one, it won't let you have another one. You can only have one. So that's done. And then on your page, you might want to have a logout button, whatever you want, or an image, whatever you have, a link, a button, whatever you want to have. You have your logout text, highlight that, and then say plus, and again user authentication, and say logout user. Yeah, and it say link clicked, and when done, go to login again. User authentication again. Bottom, go down, up, yeah, and then log out. So when somebody is logged out, where do you want to take him? To a login screen, or you want to keep him on the same page, whatever you want. Or you might have another page. So I have taken them back on login screen. Yeah. Okay. That's it. That's your logout done. So now, if you try to see this page in a browser, what will happen is, because I had already logged in and I'm continuing on the same window, you only see that page as logout. But let's say if you say logout and then come back on account page, that's taken you back. Because you said logout, it's taken back. But now if I go to Dreamweaver and open this page again, it will take you back to login because you're not logged in. Yeah? If you try to open your account page again, it will not let you go in unless you've logged in, because that's how restriction works. Did you open from browser again? If you open this page again in browser, any browser, doesn't matter, it will bring you back to the login because you're not logged in. So you have to be logged in. Yeah. Yeah. And logout is good. By default, system logs you out if you are if you've closed the window. That's how browser works. If you close the window, it logs you out automatically. But it won't log you out if you keep the window open and you move. Does that make sense? So that's why logout option is very important, and you should have a logout option on every page. So restrict access to page and logout will go on every page where somebody is supposed to be there once logged in. Does that make sense? So you should have a logout option, and you will have to add that option everywhere. Does that make sense? Yeah? You can. I'll explain something. you know how this logout concept works, or how does, there is a concept behind the web server. Whenever any window opens or any page opens basically. Now for browser or for web server, every new window is a new user according to them, right? The browser or the web server sees it like this. So every time somebody requests something from the browser or the server, it is the same user. For them, there is no concept of a user, right? For them, it's just a request coming from a PC or a specific process, let's say. But what you've done is, you have built a concept that I have a user in my database or a username and password, and you want to correlate the work, right? Now what we say is that how computer remembers it is a memory process, and that's called as a session. I've gone in, that's one session, but that session should automatically close when I close a page or I move from one page to another. But what server allows it, okay, no, that's not necessary. What we have is we will start this process of session, and we'll keep a variable there called as username. And when somebody uses the login screen, I will put his name in that bucket. Does that make sense? You know, that username bucket. Now, if you want to make that person go out, you empty that bucket. You have to have a process that empties the bucket. So logout is doing what? Although the window is open, I am trying empty the bucket. I don't want that username to be remembered. That's what you are doing. Another way of that doing is, okay, after 15 seconds, if the no request is coming up, empty the bucket anyway. So that's a timeout thing. But then for that, you have to keep a record of how much time has happened since no activity has occurred. So a server, I mean, earlier people never used to use session, and we in fact didn't have a concept of session. We only used to have a concept of a cookie or laborious way. You know, one person moves from one page to another. We used to send whole set of information to the next page. From that page it goes to the next page, you send all that information together. It's like keep your basket with you, you know. And then they said, no, that's not acceptable in programming. What we could do is, we can centralize. So let's centralize that bucket, which every page can see. And that's what a session is. A place which every user can see, but then the concept is everybody can see, but I have given restrictions on the concept of a username, who can see what. So that's centralized. Session is nothing but a centralized information, but it is going to be shared among pages. Does that make sense? It's going to be among, and we don't use session ID, but the server actually uses the concept of a session ID more than a username. We create username for ourselves, but browser or a web server has a concept of a session ID. But that's a way of looking at it. What we are doing is that whenever a session starts, whenever a page opens, a session starts. And when the session starts, and there is a variable saying username, and if the username already has a value, then it continues, it says the next page is also the same user only. And that's why if you go into the same website, you can't usually log in from the same browser. That explains the concept. Does that make sense? Like if I'm on a Hotmail, from the same browser, I can't log in with two different names, isn't it? Have you ever done that? If you're in Hotmail, you can't actually open a new tab and just open a different user. But if you're on different browsers, then you can, because how computer trace where the request is coming from, the PC, the browser. You know, on top, what is the request program or what is the request software. So if it's coming from the same PC, same browser, the concept is the username is already there. That's going to be the same. So they're dealing with that concept. But as soon as the browser changes, the request changes. Right? And then the username can be allocated again. So that, yeah. So what I'm trying to say is a different page is still a different request, but we have used the concept at a server that go back and see where is the request coming from and pick up one variable for all that request. And if it is the case, then give a username identification. If the second request comes in, if the username is already there, that means it's not a new session, it's a continued process. and I need to break that and that breaking is done with the help of logout, and it doesn't break when you close the page. Does that make sense? If you close one tab and somebody opens that tab again, that's why we usually say that when you're leaving the machine, close the window, not the tab. Browser, because if somebody else goes on to, if you leave the window open and somebody goes on to the whatever website you were on, you are actually logged in. You've not actually logged out. Yeah. So window, when you close the browser, yes, the session will complete automatically. But if you just close the page, the session will not end. Is that? Yeah. So this is the feature you would need to add on every page is logout and restrict access to page in the first place, which will be added to every page which is only available to registered users. Is that okay? So let's take a small break.